Former Republican Senator Jeff Flake says that at least 35 Republican senators would vote to remove Donald Trump if the Senate impeachment vote were private. So let's back up a little bit. The entire time I've been talking to you about impeachment, I've been accurately saying, I believe, that as long as Republicans control the Senate, Trump will not be removed by impeachment. The House Democrats can do their impeachment inquiry. If it leads them to saying we are filing articles of impeachment, they can do it. They can do the impeachment trial. But no matter what, once it goes to the Republican-controlled Senate, which there will be at least until January of 2021, and I believe until January of 2023, based on the Senate election map, you are not going to remove Trump because Republicans would not vote to convict Trump on an impeachment charge. Now, I've not mentioned it, but implied in this is that impeachment votes in the Senate are public. The way you see senators vote on stuff, yay, nay, up vote, down vote, the way they do that, they would publicly vote on impeachment in that same way. But in the back of my mind, and that of many others, was the question of, imagine that the Senate impeachment vote was not public, but instead it was private. So at the end of the vote, you would get the number of senators who voted to impeach and the number of senators who voted to acquit. Would you have some Republicans who would be willing to vote for the removal of Donald Trump if that's where the evidence brought them? Would Republican senators vote to impeach Trump if they knew that their vote would not be public and therefore they would potentially not be subject to the political repercussions of it? And the growing idea, according to a couple of reports, is that the answer is yes. We first heard from Republican political consultant Mike Murphy. And Mike Murphy said on MSNBC that if the vote was private, 30 Republican senators would back impeachment. Then we heard from former Republican Senator Jeff Flake, who said at the Texas Tribune Festival over the weekend that it's not, or Thursday it was, it's not 30 Republican senators that would vote to impeach Trump. It's more like at least 35 who would back impeachment if the impeachment vote were private. And because of the balance of power, you actually don't even need 30 or even 35 Republicans to get behind impeachment. You would only need about 20, assuming that all Democrats and independent senators voted for it. But this is mostly hypothetical because, once again, it's not a private ballot. It's a public ballot, just like everything that goes on in the Senate. There's one other element to this, which is it's not as simple to say, if the vote were private, 35 Republicans would be in favor of it. Because even if the vote were private, those Republican senators who vote against impeachment would come out and say afterwards, even if it's a private vote, I voted against impeachment. And this would immediately put the spotlight on the Republicans that don't come forward and say, I voted against convicting. And they would either have to lie or admit it. So it's sort of a fantasy that it would even go down in this way. But what this signals then is a huge cowardice on the part of the Republicans, because if it's true that they're only willing to vote to impeach if the vote is secret and it doesn't have political ramifications for them, it's merely a political calculation. Now, the upside, if we want to find a silver lining here, is that I guess they're not all blindly loyal to Donald Trump. The downside is they're afraid to act on it unless it's done in a way that it will have no consequences whatsoever. I read a comment online when researching the story that sums it up as, they're not all traitors, some merely have no integrity. And it's not even just lack of integrity. There's also the issue of hypocrisy, because in addition to the lacking integrity, they would instantly be voting to impeach a Democratic president who had done all of the things that Donald Trump has done. This may not even be a decision they end up having to make. We're just at the beginning of the inquiry, which happens before articles are filed, which would happen before all of the other things that we've discussed. But if Jeff Flake is only 20% correct, if Mike Murphy is only 30% correct, that means that there would be the desire from enough Republicans in the Senate to impeach that it could remove Donald Trump. But mark my words, you are not going to see it under this current Republican-controlled Senate. Let's take a break. We will be back with much more right after this.